Hello, everybody. Hello and welcome. Welcome to our latest episode of The Secrets of the High Demand Coach. And I have here with me today a very high demand coach and a new friend and acquaintance of mine, Shā Sparks with Sparks of Fire International. And Shā and I met actually on her podcast. So I strongly recommend that you guys go out and check it out. I'm sure we'll talk about it here in a little bit. We'll also include a link in the notes. But without further ado, Shā, thank you so much for being here. Our listeners don't know this, but I'm 15 minutes late for this. So just a testament to one, don't always trust technology. And two, Shā is just amazing. I mean, nobody sits on an empty Zoom room for 15 minutes, but out of just the kindness of her heart and who she is, she's here with us today. And you guys are the primary beneficiaries of that because I know it's going to be an absolute treat. So Shā, thank you for being here. And I'd love to open up and just say, hey, tell us your story. How did you get into coaching? Why? And what did that journey look like?
Wow. Well, first of all, thank you for asking me to be on your show, and congratulations for having a podcast. This is so exciting.
Thank you.
I'm happy and excited for you to see where it goes. Let's see. I have been a coach. I started off being a coach behind the chair as a hairstylist for most of my career. In fact, all of my career. And as time went on, I really started to think about what is next for me. I knew that I was not destined to be there for the rest of my life. I was put in a good, 29 years, which is hard to believe because I'm only 30. So I don't know how that all works out in math, but I put in a good run. And I knew that at some point I was being called, being led, doors were opening to me to do something else. So it started because I had gotten into an abusive relationship. And when I got out of that, I was able to peel away the layers of the onion that I am, that we all are, and heal. And as I started to heal, I started to change the language that I spoke to myself, most importantly, but also the people around me, especially my family. And even my hair clients, who then got the benefit of going, well, what do I say to this person, to me as they were getting their hair done. So they got the benefit of coaching from behind the chair while I was still exploring, like, what does this look like to be coaching? And so that's kind of how the idea was first planted in me, because clients would ask me about, what do I say to this person, and how do I communicate better with this person? And that person was literally their spouse, their parents, their kids, and their boss or their coworker. And so it was it was all people. It didn't matter who the person was. It was really about getting to the heart of the person and communicating to that. Yeah. And so when I started to share what I had learned about myself, and one of the major things that I learned was we have to be vulnerable and we have to be able to share what it is that we're thinking about the situation, like what it is that I'm feeling in this moment of the story that I'm telling myself about this situation. Yeah. And that is just absolutely profound. People don't actually do that, nor do they even think about being vulnerable and wanting to share that. Right. And when I did that with my own family, things started to shift. My dad, most of my life, had only shown me anger, and that was the only emotion he ever showed, and had never been vulnerable a day in his life, nor did he ever have conversations that was outside of, superficial conversations like, how's the car running? How is work? How's the weather? And when I started to shift that and dive deeper with my dad, he started to heal and peel away his own layers. And he became my best friend in the last 5 years of his life. Wow. And that is really my why, is to really create a movement for people to really be able to be vulnerable and to have a safe space with their family, with their company, with their spouse, to be able to share.
Yeah. I love that. And one of the things, I want to dig into that a little bit, but one of the things, just as you were talking, that if you're not a founder, you may not quite get, but those who are founders listening just get it. Like, it is like starting a business is part of who you are, right?
Yeah.
There's so many times it comes out of this just deep experience, maybe profound pain, maybe profound accomplishment, but it's never like just, kind of a thing. Yeah, and even for those, because we've had a couple of people who said I was an accidental entrepreneur. So even if the starting point was the kind of whatever, there comes this moment for every single founder where it's like, wow, am I really going to do this? Right. Like,
Mhm.
and so what I think founders struggle with after that sometimes is they struggle because for the employees that they're bringing in, especially as they get to like 15 and 20 and 50, it's not that same experience for them, right? It's a job for many
Mhm.
of them, even if it's an exciting one, but it's not necessarily who they are. And the things that you do, again, are so knit to who you are that it can be hard to let go of some of that. It can be hard to just
Mm.
work through some of that. And you see a lot of that go sideways. And I'm sure that you've seen this a lot, but it's like, that there's a vulnerability there that even if you don't want to express it, you can't get away with it as a founder, right? It's just,
Yes.
it's part of the deal. How do you see that showing up, right? That like the wrestle with vulnerability for founders in particular.
Yeah, absolutely. So I do work with CEOs, and it's interesting when I say that word, they're like, "What? I'm not going to be vulnerable. Are you kidding me?" And so I'll put another word with it. I'll call it transparent.
Mm,
And it's really about creating a company culture where you're being transparent enough and to really build respect. You're building trust. You're building rapport. You're building a safe space, to say that word again, for your employees, for your clients to really be able to go to you and talk about anything
mm,
and be able to trust you. And so that then you can actually trust them that they're going to be their most productive, and they're going to want to stay. You're
yeah.
going to build that loyalty because, and especially in today's world, we don't have loyalty. They're always looking for the next or the best and the better. The grass is greener. And what happens is when the CEO removes the ego from their title, as in
Hmm.
E as in ego, they
Right.
remove that from the title, the chief ego officer, and they become transparent and really kind of sit with, okay, where are our blind spots? Where are our weaknesses? And what if I shared that in a way that says, let's brainstorm this as a group, as a whole, and be able to create and produce results out of that?
Mm.
Rather than constantly giving orders, you're now creating a more cohesive environment, a culture that is all about teamwork rather than just barking orders from the back of the room.
That's so good. That's so good. Now, you've mentioned kind of working in a business environment, working with a CEO, working with their team. You've also mentioned this just kind of deep vulnerability on a family side as well. How do those intersect in your world, or do they?
Oh, they most definitely do. I have seen time and time again that with my clients, that the blind spot that we have with our family, and again, it could be a spouse, it could be a child, it could be a parent, is also a blind spot that they're having in our business.
Well,
And it's because it all boils down to relationships. It all boils down to the human, the component. And when you look at that and you're like, okay, so I'm having this, let's just say that someone had said that they were having an issue with their spouse and they weren't communicating. And it's like, okay, great, they're not communicating with you. Are you communicating with them? And he was like, absolutely, I'm communicating with them. I'm telling her what I want, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, that's great that you're giving her orders about you, but are you receiving what she's saying? And are you asking questions?
right.
And that is like the key, I think, in any communication, is having the ability and the willingness to ask questions and be okay, whatever that answer is.
Right. That's fantastic. Now, a lot of the folks in my world, a lot of listeners here may say like, "Hey, I'm good at the business thing, right? We've got a successful organization, it's growing, I've got a great team, those relationships are awesome, but it doesn't like that same like being CEO doesn't translate to being a great mom or dad or husband or wife. Why is there a breakdown between those, and why is it important to bridge that gap?
Great question. It's important to bridge that gap because we have this thing in our society that we want to achieve called work-life balance,
Hmm.
right? And we were not made to work 60, 70, 80 hours a week and then come home and still have energy left for the people around us, our community. Even if you don't have a family and you're single, but you have community, you have
Hmm.
family in some shape or form, whether it's just friends. And so we're not built to just focus on the one thing. And we are built to be able to have energy for all the different areas. We might have some energy for other areas more on some days than others. But at the end of the day, we have to know where our energy is and where it can go. We
Right.
only get, if you look at a pitcher of water, we only get that much. We only get that much of energy every day. And once it's poured out, and then we're still trying to squeeze those last drops at the end because we're, there till 9 o'clock at night sometimes. It's like, okay, there's none left. And then you go home and you're screaming at the kids or whatever. It's because you're done.
Yeah.
So if there was something that you could do that you can find that helps you do to replenish that energy, like maybe it's listening to your favorite song or, going where people work out at the gym after work. Maybe it's walking in nature. Maybe it's just being able to just breathe and take a moment when you get home and have, 30 minutes to yourself. Then you can start engaging in the family. Then you can go walk the dog, that type of thing.
Yeah, it's really interesting because right now there's this little microcosm happening for me. So when COVID hit, I went from working at home to working at an office. My kids
Mm,
came home and it was like, nope, that's not going to happen. So when the whole world was going to work from home, I went to work from an office,
yeah.
and had it's a good fit for me, right? The drive there and the drive back are really kind of reset points where I can move from one space to the other. Well, just recently for a short run, I've got to work from the house. So we moved the whole setup here to the house. And now my commute is about, 10 stairs.
Hmm.
And I've realized, even just in this short little bit of time, I'm really missing my 20-minute drive home. That because of that, that shifting gears that you're talking about, that change point, and it's a temporary thing, and so I'm glad for that. I'll be going back to the office when they're done with some work on it, um, but I think it's true. I think that there is a different energy at work than there
Hmm.
is at home. I think one of the folks on the podcast, but a friend of mine said I had to move from couch time to floor time, right? I had to get
Yes.
from just coming home and vegging on the couch to getting down on my hands and knees with my kids when they were little.
Yeah.
And I think that picture of a pitcher, if we can say those two words together, is a great metaphor, and I appreciate it a lot. Now, a question that I have for you is, before you start working with a client, right? Let's say a CEO, they start to feel like something's wrong. What are the other things that they try before
Mm.
they call you and ask for help, and how does that go?
Well, I have found that most of them just try to struggle through, just try to
Mm,
push through. They have this I can't stop, I have to keep going, just push through the challenge. And I don't necessarily know, I'm trying to think, most of my clients haven't actually worked with a coach, or they've listened to podcasts, they've read books, but then they're kind of like pulling their hair out at their wits end, going, okay, now I have to hire a coach, and now I see that you're the one to work with. It's almost like there's so I so let me just start by saying I am a certified fearless living coach,
mm,
and I help clients break through fear and wherever that shows up. And so by the time they meet me, they've been referred to me most of all. because I don't do a whole lot of advertising or promoting myself. It's literally word of mouth.
Mm.
And by that time, it's like, oh, got it. So I'm dealing with something that's way bigger than me, and I don't even know where it is. And I'm looking at what's next.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so we have a deep conversation, first of all, in the first hour, just to see if we're a good fit for each other,
Yeah.
because I want to make sure that I can serve them and that they will be inspired and empowered to do the work that I will give them.
I love
And
that. Yeah.
and if it's not me, I have a plethora. I know that's the great thing about the coaching world. As you know, we have a plethora of other people that they can work with. And I
Yeah.
have no problem like referring them to someone else if I am not a good fit for them.
I love that. Where do you think the kind of crossover point is? Because I don't know that it's feasible to hire a coach in every aspect of your life every day, right? But I've seen it too, where a lot of folks they go on this kind of self-learning journey. Where do you find that tipping point happens? Who needs a coach as opposed to going out to podcasts or books or whatever it may be?
Yeah. So most of the time in the beginning stages of I need help or I need to figure something out. I'm hitting a struggle. I'm hitting a challenge. People will point the finger outwardly and say,
Mm,
it's the clients, it's the customers, it's my employees, it's the building, it's, whatever, it's COVID, right? They'll constantly point the fingers elsewhere. So when they find that they're going, wait, is it me? Is it something that I could be a better leader as? Is it something that I can do for me that will help this environment, that will help what's happening right now? That's the best time, I believe, is to really, when you've got it, that it might just be you, might just be the issue. That is when I think the best time is to hire a coach.
that's excellent. That is very, very good advice. When you reach that point where you finally realize I've got something to do with this. It may not be 100%, may not even be 51%, right?
Right, right.
But that there's some part of this that is me. And what I've found on the backside of that is that's one of the it's a creepy feeling, right? It's not one that we really enjoy. But what comes on the backside of that is if it is due to you, that's something that you can change.
Yes. Yes. Well, before we're trying to control other things, we're trying to
Yeah.
control the uncontrollables. So then when you take like full on 100% sole responsibility for yourself and go, okay, wait a minute here. What is it that I can shift and control to change and bring to the table differently?
Yeah, that's so good. All right. So, the moment that our listeners have been waiting for, the moment I've been waiting for, is I'd love to hear from you what the biggest secret is that you'd want to share with our audience today, and founders, leaders, the CEOs that you work with, that will help them to grow as a person, as a leader, and to even help their organization grow. What would that one thing be?
Mm. So I'm just closing my eyes and just thinking about that question for a moment. And the one thing that pops up to me is hold your thoughts captive. And I say
Mm.
that because there are thoughts that we have about others, and then there are thoughts that we have about ourselves that we don't even realize we're having. It
Mm.
could, and so in the coaching world, we talk about, do you know that to be true, or are you making that up? So one of the things that, and I'm just going to make something up, like, okay, let's just pretend that, you had mentioned before that Scott was 15 minutes late, right? So I'm just going to say, Scott didn't show up. He doesn't like me. I'm stupid. I'm weak. I got the wrong date. I got the wrong time. That could be a story,
Mm.
right? That we think about. So that's my thoughts. That could be a scenario where I am thinking that, like, oh my gosh, it's all my fault. I did something wrong. And instead of that, it's really about being able to notice that that is what you're thinking. So whether that's with your boss, maybe that's with your team. Most of the time it's with our teams. Like the teams aren't this is a good one. The team thinks I'm incompetent because I don't necessarily know the answer to this.
Yeah.
And that statement, most of the time, I'll say 98% of the time, is untrue.
Well.
but you don't know that because you haven't asked the questions. So I would say that the best thing that advice I could give anyone is to hold their thoughts captive and to ask yourself, do I know this to be true? Or could I possibly be making this up?
Yeah. That's it's really quite profound, and it's not something that I had spent much time really looking at. But I was just doing an exercise. It was actually with a group from my church, and there was this person was kind of walking us through a process that they had for designing this new program we wanted to put on. And he asked a very simple question. He said, "What do we know?" And he said, "What do
Mm-hmm.
we assume?" And the
Yes.
number of times I wrote something in the know and then scratched it out and wrote it in the assume, right? It's stunning how many
Yes.
things, right, are really belong in the assumptions category, right? And it may be a story that we're making up. It may be a past experience to find what
Oh,
used to
of
happen,
course,
right?
that's what
It
it is.
may be
Yes.
just complete misconception. It may be wishful thinking. It may be true, right? But the difference between assumption and fact is profound, right? The
Mm-hmm.
fact you can rely on, the assumption, there's good data in that, right? But it's not to be taken at face value. And so I love that you brought that out. And again, I was just shocked. And I would encourage folks to do this. And if you want more about this, we'll talk about how you can connect with Shay here at the end, because I'm sure she's better at it than listening to a podcast. So if you know it's you, here we go. We'll tie it full circle. But no, just take a moment, whatever that challenge is that you're facing right now, and say, what do I know about it, right? And
Mm-hmm.
two, what do I assume about it?
Yes.
And I think you'll be surprised at what you come back with. That's fantastic advice, Shay.
Oh, thank you. And I will go a little bit further on the assumption.
Yeah.
How many times have you said, "Well, I can't tell that person this because they'll say blank, blank, blank."
Mm,
That is an assumption.
that's so true. Wow. Excellent, excellent, excellent advice. That was worth the price of admission. All right. So, uh, and then so now I've worked with enough coaches to know that many coaches have a knack for spending all of their energy. We talked about spending energy earlier, but we
Mm-hmm.
can spend all our energy on our clients, right? On our
Yes.
work, because it's important work, it's life-changing stuff, but we can do it at the cost of spending time on our own business. So I
Mm-hmm.
want for you to take a moment, kind of take your coach hat off, put
Mm-hmm.
your CEO hat on, right?
Yes.
Step into the ring with us and tell us, what are you doing to grow as a leader in the next phase of growth
Mm.
for Sparks of Fire International?
Oh my gosh, so much. One is that I surround myself with amazing team of people who are not just supportive, but they are masters of their own craft. So I find people who are the who instead of me trying to do the what.
Mm,
So there's a good book called "It's Not About the Who, It's Not About the What, It's About the Who," and it is so that's the one thing that I'm doing is finding people who are really good at what they do and let them go and not have and I don't have to micromanage them. They just do what they do, and then I can look over it with ease and go yes, yes, or tweak this here a little bit.
yeah.
So I'm doing that, and it's funny. I have a pretty, I won't say strict schedule, but I have a schedule for myself that is set up in a way where I have learned what hours of the day work best for my energy.
Mm,
And so it's in the afternoon um, or the morning, depending on the day, depending on what I've done the day before, that type of thing. And so it's really interesting that when I started to work like that, it makes because I don't work a 9 to 5, so or work quote unquote 9 to 5. So I might work 1 to 7, and that seems to really work for me.
well,
Yeah.
very cool. I was just sitting, I've got my blue chair in my office, and my blue chair is kind of my thinking and meditation spot and praying. And I was thinking this morning of that exact thing. Like, how could I manage my energy better throughout the day? And I walked away with a big question mark. So,
Mm,
no great wisdom there, but there's something to that. And I love that you found that. And 9 to 5 is something that is as arbitrary as any other working time, right? A
exactly.
byproduct of a bygone age by this point.
Yes.
And so I love that you're able to break free of that and run with it in the way that's best for you. All right. So kind of wrapping it up here. I know some of our listeners are sitting here thinking like, absolutely, I'd love to live fearless, right? How can they connect with you, learn more about you and what you do?
Absolutely. So, gosh, where do I start? So first of all, my website is shasparks.com. That's SHASPARKS.com. And please bear with me. It is under updating at the moment. So it will be not exactly everything that I do right now, but it is a good portion of the things that I do. Awesome. You can also find my podcast on any platform, the Power of Investing in People podcast. And just a few weeks ago was Scott's interview. So you can definitely check that out. And in those show notes, there is a link. If you want to connect with me, there is a link to hit, and it goes straight to my Calendly account and sets up a meeting for you to just connect and talk and see if we're a good fit for each other, or if there's something that I can refer you to. I also do heart and mind fitness coaching and brainstorming for your business. And I have podcasting and veteran resources, which is also near and dear to my heart. I talked about my dad. My dad was a veteran. So I am a plethora of useless and sometimes useful information. So feel free to reach out to me on that as well.
You're being modest. I know that it leans very, very heavily toward the highly, highly useful side of that. So Shā, thank you so much for being with us. Head over to shasparks.com. Check out her podcast again. I had a wonderful opportunity to be on there, but I know you'll get to hear more of her wisdom and that of her guests. The Power of Investing in People podcast. You can find it really anywhere there's podcasts. I know it's all over the place, and look forward to seeing you guys over there. Shā, thank you for being here. I so appreciate it. For those of you listening today, thank you so much. We wish you the absolute best. Go live a fearless life, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time. Take care.